Hey, everybody, and welcome to Ember Sky Filmmaking Podcast. Today I have Rob Letourneau, right? Close?
Yeah. Perfect. That's perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you.
From SongWind Studios, .ca, which is a production house that does feature films and music production here in the Ottawa region. So
Awesome.
feel free to say hi to Rob, and let's get talking about how he's got apparently over 110 laurels from film festivals.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. And it's nice to see everyone or have everyone see us. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
For those watching the video, yes, and for those who are listening to audio, they can only hear us. Oh, the nature of podcasts. So you've been making films for such a long time, and you've had so many, like you told me, I think it was 7 films that have like 110 laurels. Like you seem to be the guy who knows how to. I'm going to say work the festival circuit. It's not something I've ever like. I think I've been selected for like one short film. So I'm sort of interested to learn, and I think everybody who's listening in today wants to learn sort of about like what does it take to make a film that is award worthy, and go.
There again, I enjoy talking, and I know a lot of the people that know me personally, they're going, wow, Rob hasn't said anything yet. So, um, well, let me first of all start with a quick little background on myself because my background, having spent a lot of time at the CBC television for a number of years, I actually come from a music background, and I originally started years ago as a drummer. Through the years, I've learned how to play piano and guitar and all those nice things along the way. But my interest really in film began by accident when I'd run into one of the directors that I used to work with at the CBC television, and she kind of encouraged me to take that step. And I started with my first short film in 2014, which was a film called The Map. I then later moved on to, we had actually at the time, we ended up at ComFest in Toronto in 2014. And we then ended up in Atlantic City at the Garden State Film Festival. That then kind of encouraged us to move along. We then made our next film was The Map, our first feature film, and it went really well. And it as well saw 2 film festivals. We were really, really pleased. And then from there, we something happened where for some reason I started really enjoying it. I found something I didn't really think I would. And what happened was I started really seeing that there was a possibility here. And I think the nicest thing that really spoke to me was that this was something that I knew I couldn't really do by myself. And I needed a lot of great people at my side to help me along the way. And that kind of set us along the journey. Since then, we did a spy film called The Double Edged Sword. We ended up in 24 film festivals and winning a total of 38 laurels for that film. That film is actually right behind me, right here. You'll see all the laurels and stuff. If you do
Yep.
ever want to see anything, you can go to my website at songwind.ca. Um, from that film, my wife Judy, who is also the producer in for my movies, she's kind of my better half. Where after I've done something, I have the passion. Where she's more the intellectual, smart one that'll say, "Okay, that's not right. You've got to look at this in a whole brand new light." And that often, will bring to me some brand new, fresh ideas that maybe I didn't think of because as the writer, as the director, as the editor, I'm very passionate about what I do and I really enjoy it. And then we moved on from the film A Double-Edged Sword, and my wife convinced me to do a Christmas film. She wanted a romantic comedy, which we did, and it was called I Need a Christmas Vacation, and it also did really well. It ended up in 8 film festivals. It ended up in this really big one down in the U.S. It was one of those things I thought there's no way we're going to make this film festival, and in the end, they contacted me and they said, Rob, we understand what you're doing. We really love the growth, and we want to encourage you. And I was so pleased. Then my wife Judy and I sat down and we decided to go into some murder mysteries. We actually started a 3-part murder mystery feature movies series. The first one, Hometown Mysteries, a farmhouse murder, which is, sorry, wrong side. I'm opposite. It's this movie right here. With that film, currently, we've been through 28 film festivals, and to date, I believe we have 48 or 49 laurels to date. I will quickly mention before I talk about this film, I will quickly mention about the next film that we've already started actually filming. And we were just finishing editing part 2 of Hometown Mysteries. It's called The Case of the Sleazy Manager. And we are currently starting to film our third movie in that series, the Hometown Mysteries. And it is called Murder Under the Hood. And you're totally correct. And to date, we've won a total of 110 laurels. We've been part of, I think, in the high 40s in film festivals. I mean, we haven't gone to each film festival personally, but for example, like this past weekend, one of our music videos from our film was in a film festival in Rome, Italy. Next weekend, we're actually in a film festival in Prague, Czechoslovakia. And in the last 4 or 5 months, we've actually won in 4 different film festivals, which is incredible. How we did it is just beyond us. Well, we know how we did it with a great team and some great passionate people. But I'll leave that at that for now, so you can ask me some individual
I,
questions
I I
because
I do have some questions before we jump into talking about the mystery series, which I'm sure everyone's going to be very excited to hear about. But for those who don't know, who've somehow accidentally tripped on this podcast, can you explain to them what a laurel is for
I,
filmmaker?
I certainly can. That's actually a question I get asked quite often. It actually started back in the Olympic Games. I think I'm not sure how many years BC it was, but when you were an Olympian back in the day when it started, the Romans used to give you these things that they put on your head, and they were basically like a leaf, and they were kind of and they're recognized as laurels. And what they are, it's to show that you're the winner or you're the champion, or it's a significance of some winning attribute, if you want to say that. You can win some sort of award, and oftentimes what they'll do is they'll put that laurel they'll put the name of what you've won inside of laurels. Just like you see on this poster right here, every one of the awards we won has a set of laurels kind of around each one of them.
Yeah, so we'll post a picture here for those who are not listening but watching. This is what a laurel looks like, and this is an example of one of the laurels that Rob has won.
Right.
So, um, in terms of like, do the laurels come with like a cash prize, or is there like anything, or is it more just the recognition for the laurels? Like, I know the ones I've gotten are like, congratulations, it's recognition. I can put it on my videos, but like I don't know about the larger film festivals.
Good question. Very good question. I actually have to answer that in 2 parts. The first part is we should first of all understand film festivals because
Okay.
they're not all the same. Okay,
Okay.
it would kind of be like talking saying my son won in the hockey tournament, but he plays in Bantam hockey.
Okay.
Now, that's a lot different winning in that tournament than, let's say, well, my son plays for the Ottawa 67s and they
Yeah.
happen to win the championship. Or my son plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs and they won. So that's something we have to first understand. Okay.
Yeah.
So the second part of your question, I think, has to deal with um, first of all, understanding film festivals.
Mhm.
Film festivals are a beast in their own, and it's kind of like you need to understand where you're sending your film, because each film festival asks for a submission. what
Yeah.
happens is the big one nowadays is the website Film Freeway, where we basically upload our submission, and then we pay to have our film recognized by a certain film festival. So I hope I'm not going into too much of a detailed explanation.
No, no, that's good. Yeah, because I as in my experience is I had a couple short films. I decided to try the circuit with a few of them. I got one screened in the UK, and I think one was
Awesome,
screened in the United States, and
awesome, awesome.
that was as far as I went with it. Because uh, I know Film Freeway is now sort of the way to do it, which is a website which I can show here for those watching, where you can basically upload your film and sort of search all the different
Right.
film festivals.
And
But
you
when
can
it
also
comes
upload music videos. You can
okay,
upload trailers as well as your film, your
oh
your
okay,
your short film or your feature film
I think if
or
I
your
submitted a
documentary
trailer
as
for a
well.
short film, somebody would shoot me.
And the other thing to understand, I think, before we go too far into this to kind of confuse people,
Yeah.
as much as we've had a lot of success, you've got to understand the tiers or the levels that are involved with film festivals. So
Okay.
to begin with, at the bottom, we have what we call local film festivals, and they're ones that they're very supportive, and they're so great here in Ottawa. A friend of mine, Vincent, he runs this one Digi 60 and everything else, and it's the scene in Ottawa is just so vibrant. There's just so many people that are involved in it, and just so many great people that really want to be involved with film. And that's a fantastic place for people to start, because a lot of these local film festivals, you can go to them and you can meet all kinds of different people, and you can really get involved, in the community, and you can really start to learn and understand the process. So that's one level. The next level is kind of like, we call them like citywide film festivals, where they might draw from, for example, a city like Ottawa. We might get a couple of films from Montreal or Toronto, but it's a lot for like the surrounding area in Ottawa. Then you have what's called the city international film festivals, where you have some cities that'll actually ask, for example, like the one I was in last weekend in Rome, Italy. They basically put out that they were looking for, on an international level, films, be it short films, feature films, documentaries, and what they do is that they ask for these submissions. Now, aside from that, there's another thing called the Liftoff Film Festival. And those are the ones that you've got to have a strong heart. Because what you do is you enter them and you go into them, and then some of them send you back a 5 or 10 page letter explaining to you, with professionals, exactly what's wrong about your film. So, and if you have a weak heart, don't do it. Because as a filmmaker and a passionate person, I found that difficult, where my wife found it very, very interesting and very educational for us. It told us that show, don't tell.
Okay.
Now, the next level I'd like to talk about, that we're just touching upon, in the
Hmm.
international side of things, where we were lucky enough this year, we won in first, we won in, I think it was Santa Monica. They had what they call an indie film festival, but an
Okay.
international indie festival. Now, the next step, if you get past all of those and you're starting to do really well, you get the higher levels, and the higher level is kind of things like Cannes, places
Yeah.
like TIFF in Toronto,
Yeah.
places like there's a few of them anyways. Robert Redford has a big one down in the U.S. And in these festivals, if you don't have $1 million movie, like
Go home.
you're yeah, don't hold your breath,
Yeah.
because you're not even gonna, they're, the biggest thing with me, what happened is that I did about 4 or 5 films, and then I was approached by Prime Video, and they basically spoke to me and said, "Look, Rob, we love what you're doing, but the quality of your camera just isn't good enough." And they have
Okay.
actually qualifications for
Yeah.
Netflix, and you have to have a certain level of camera in order to even submit. Now, once you've submitted to some of these places, I've even heard people tell me expect 10% winnings, which means
Mhm.
if you submit to 10 film festivals and you win one, you're doing well. I don't really believe in I don't believe in that way of thinking, but the way I've done things and I've come to there again, I'll stop there and I'll let you continue, sir.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, no, I can't remember how many film festivals I submitted to get like the basically the two, one for each short film that I got actually like accepted in, and the other one I can't remember was accepted or if I got, I think ranked or something like that. But it was one of those things
Right.
where it was like, it's like, yeah, you have to understand, like when you're submitting to film festivals, you're not necessarily going to get into every single one that you submitted, even if it's a good
Exactly.
film. You're still
Exactly.
going to have that, mix of, one reviewer might like one thing, another
Right.
reviewer might like another.
Exactly. And heartbreak is part of the whole deal,
Mhm,
especially here in Canada. The one thing I've come to
right,
learn, as much as I'm a very proud Canadian and I'm a veteran from years gone by with the Canadian military, Canadian film festivals are very, very difficult to place in. Now,
okay,
the other thing is we have to quickly talk about, which we didn't,
okay,
is what happens in a film festival. So, first of all, you got to picture a film festival gets anywhere from 200 to maybe 1,000 submissions. So, out of these, maybe let's say 500 submissions, they
mhm,
will then turn and have different categories. So, you got to figure they'll be like, best long format feature, best documentary long format, best short film, best comedy, best horror. Now, they're an important point as well. You have to be able to direct your film to the proper film festival. I'll give you an example. If there's a film festival like this one we made one day, and I was amazed we did, it's called Shockfest in New York City. Beautiful film festival, beautiful people to deal with. And we made the film festival, and I couldn't believe it because at the time we had a spy film, well, it was a murder mystery, and they considered us to be part of Shockfest, a horror film festival. And I was just amazed we made it. So that's the first tip. Make sure you got to try and stay within your genre. If it's a comedy film festival, then submit comedies. If it's a horror film festival, submit horrors. You can submit short films, long films, the works. So the next thing, though, I will talk about some of the film festivals. Not only do you have to enter them, is that the US, because they have a bigger market, they tend
mhm,
to be a lot friendlier in the US. The
okay,
Europeans, they tend to have a certain flavor that they're looking for. And the Canadian ones, well, there again, don't get discouraged. Just keep working at it. In my opinion, as Steven Tyler once told me, you got to lose in order to learn how to win.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So when you say, I'm curious, when you say the Europeans have a certain flavor, how would you
Mhm.
describe that for people in North America? Because I know different films in different parts of the world have sort of their own take
Great
on what
question.
a
Yeah,
film is.
good question. Good question. I always seen from a few of the people I've dealt with in a few of the film festivals, the European market tends to have more of a lighter approach towards in art. You get impressionism and realism, where they tend to really like or tend to bend more towards the artistic side. Where here in North America, they tend to really like realism in their art. Where the other thing that I found that worked for me was that I kind of looked at what film festivals did, like murder mysteries, and I tried to stick with them. And I tried to kind of look at what I felt was possible. And I'm more and more amazed as time goes on, the more we keep winning. And there again, a few people have asked me, I think one of the things as well that I've considered, we're currently playing with, we understand, we've been told by a few people that are flying on Air Canada. This film right here is currently playing on Air Canada's flights, part of Encore.
Okay.
And what I've been told is that we respect the story. We respect, you know what I mean? We respect, we don't just do gore and for the sensationalism of it all. We're actually trying to build a storyline, and we're trying to do realism. We might not be the best, but we keep working at it and we keep getting better at it. But if I may say, at this point, I should say, I think the thing that's really brought me the biggest success, is having a great team at my side.
Yeah.
I have some fabulous people that work with me week in and week out, and there again, I'm a cancer survivor, so I tend to do this on Saturdays with my filming, and we do it so everybody, they can still have a life, and yet we can do what we enjoy doing, and
Hmm.
this way we love what we're doing, and I think it really shows in our movie. It really
Do
it
you use the same cast and crew sort of rotation, or like is every
Good.
film sort of new
Yes.
people, new thing, or is it like, you use the
A
same
balance.
DOP or stuff, or is it like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
like
there
obviously if
again,
somebody gets murdered in one film, they're not going to be in the sequel. I think we need to clarify that. That would be awkward.
flashback. Flashback. Go back. Go back. That's a very good question. Again, there again, you've got your thing. I was making notes earlier just to make sure that some of the things would come back to my brain. Um,
Yeah.
Yes, I actually have. I take the approach, and there again, I one time watched a video with Mel Brooks. I'm a big Mel Brooks fan from the early days, and how would you say? I loved his approach where he always kept the same actors because he knew how to work with them. So in my heart. Plus, I become really good friends with some of these people. So I've come to really rely on them and knowing that they'll be there, even though we might be in Perth or we might be in Smith Falls, someplace 2 hours away from Ottawa. I know that they'll be there. So yes, I do use anywhere from 10 to 15 returning actors on every film. I do have some actors that go away and work in theater for a little bit, or
Mhm.
my last film that I had, one of my actors, he actually went away to British Columbia, and he was supposed to plant trees, and he ended up firefighting all summer. And now that he's
Mm,
returned, he's actually in a play. How would you say, a Shakespeare play? And then he's coming
yeah.
back to us in the new year. So, I have people that kind of come and go that we've known over the years, and that's fantastic. But we also hold casting every year whenever we start a brand new movie. We
Okay.
do, and we usually have about 10 or 12 brand new actors, and then that way it gives us a chance to pick, the cream of the crop and keep them with us. No, no, no. We life has this way with all of us, and I wish I could keep everybody all the time, and I become really good friends with everybody. But it depends too on the role. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
I might only have one role for an older woman in her 60s, and yet I have 3 or 4 fantastic ladies that I could use at the drop of a dime. So there's that consideration as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the story, the cast. Sometimes you're like, I need this specific type of person. You might have to go out
Exactly.
for them, or you might say, I have somebody who can play that role, and you can use
Exactly.
them.
But the
So
friendships, the
yeah.
friendships you grow and the trust, that's the big thing too, is that, when you ask something of an actor, they have to also trust in you and what you're saying to them because and understandable as a new director, my first couple of movies, they tried me, they you know we could sit here for days on end about different stories, but the bottom line is, if it's something you believe in, and you, to be a director or a writer, you have to understand all these different, you have to understand what the lighting guy has to do, you have to
Mhm.
understand the camera people, you have to, it's not just a thing where, okay, I'm going to get up and make a movie. I've got a cell phone. It's like, well, it's great that you've got that encouragement and you really want to do that, but you know there's a price to pay along the way, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of learning to do.
Which rolls perfectly into my actual next question, which is now that you've sort of done 7 features or you're working on number 7, what would be your number 1 big takeaway learning that you could pass to somebody else and say, "Here's something I wish I knew sort of in movie 1 that I've had to learn over these movies to get to where you are now, where you're making like your third movie in a series,
Yeah.
and you know it's going to be good because the first one's done well. I'm assuming the second one's going to also do well, and then obviously with the third one, one would hope by that point you're like Harry Potter rich or famous or whatever it is that they do. Household name,
That was something
hometown
I was going to
mysteries. You've
ask
heard it
you
here
when,
first.
right. That was actually something I was going to ask you. When exactly do we get paid for this? No, no, I joke. In the end, my wife and I have managed to break even a couple of times, and that is huge in our industry.
Yeah.
Breaking even, because this is until you become rich and famous and you become Taylor Swift, then you become like the rest of us. And we do this because we love it.
Yeah.
I mean, along the way, let's say you're a golfer on every weekend. Well,
Hmm.
obviously you're going to have to spend money on, there's going to be green fees. There's going to be new clubs. There's going to be, along the
All the
way. So
lessons.
exactly. That very good point. The lessons you must take along the way. And it's the same thing in film. You never know enough. I sometimes get on film sets and I think to myself, oh, what am I going to do today? Okay, Rob, calm down. But that's the one thing we've come to learn on our film sets is we've managed to create a very positive working atmosphere, and it's like 90% women. So I don't know what the men are afraid of, but you got to get on a film set. But I think the key is as well in it is being able to stick with it over time, because it can be so alarming. You work so hard at making a film as you suggested, and then
Mhm.
it doesn't make Cannes Film Festival right off the bat, and you're like, oh my god, I wanted to make the Oscars and walk the red carpet. It's like, yeah, if you find a golden door, tell the rest of us. We've you know the way I've come to learn, it's kind of like the Paul McCartney approach. You got to put in your
Mhm.
10,000 hours. You
Yeah.
got to kind of work it. Yes, there's a couple of things I can suggest to you along the way, like find some good, passionate friends that really want to do this with you. That's a huge
Mhm.
thing, too. Learn what everybody else is doing so that you know what you need. Watch lots of videos on YouTube. I mean, there's like a plethora.
Watch
Yes, watch these podcasts and learn. I love the masterclass series. I'm constantly learning. The other thing
Mhm.
I'll get into is about equipment.
Okay.
If you don't mind, is it a good
No,
time
no.
to talk?
Talk
Oh, good,
equipment.
good,
If you wanna
good.
talk
There you
equipment and
go.
we go for another 4 hours, I'm the happiest person on the planet. But
I
but
mean,
probably for the sake of this podcast, don't go for
yeah,
4 hours.
yeah. No, hey,
Three and a
you're
half
actually.
max.
I was very impressed when we first started talking about your knowledge of some of the camera equipment that's involved. And the thing is, when it comes to equipment, some people will tell you, yes, you need $200,000 worth of equipment, and you need to show up with 5 trailers, and I disagree. You know, in my own personal experience, I've met some great filmmakers that have spent maybe $2,000 on their camera, and they've just done some amazing work. So don't let money hold you back, because it's not. You can always go to Vistec on Bank Street and here in Ottawa, and you can rent a camera for like $100 for a weekend. and
Yep.
and the other thing to talk about too is while I think about it, is about grants and stuff like that, how for financing and money for filming. That's a whole thing in itself. But
Mhm.
I'll quickly finish what I was going to say. The other real thing that the real trick that I will suggest to people is beside having a great crew beside yourself, that that makes life so much easier. You have to trust people, because as much as I feel I want to do every single thing myself to make sure it's perfect,
Hmm.
sometimes you got to make those mistakes in order to learn. Does that make sense?
Very true. Yeah.
And so that's the last thing I'll say about that, and I'll quickly talk about the camera equipment.
All
I
right.
personally just gotten into, as you mentioned earlier, the red system, Black
Hmm.
Magic, Airy. If you can afford that line, then you're. But don't go for that in your first short film.
No.
Use a DSLR camera. Even use your cell phone if you have to, and you have to learn to edit. That's a very, very important skill. Don't say, "Well, I'll just leave it to anybody else." No, you can be the best photographer, you can be the best filmmaker. If you don't know how to edit, it's, remember, there's three sides to it. The first side is learning how to write or
Hmm.
find the right writer. The second thing is the production. So the pre-production, the next thing is the production. You've got to make sure you've got a fantastic crew. You got to make sure you have the right camera. Then you have to be able to edit. In today's world, because I deal with raw footage,
Hmm.
it's not necessarily one of those those SD camera cards that go. I actually film right onto 2 terabyte. Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. I actually film with my main camera. I actually film with two cameras just in case something goes wrong.
Yeah.
So if there's a problem, I
So you're
personally.
recording directly to these types of things?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're SSDs,
Yeah.
and they're portable, and they come directly out of my camera, and we're recording digitally.
Now,
So
now,
on.
now, now to anger everybody, amateur, pro, amateur. No, I'm just kidding. No, the SD cards are
Oh,
really quite good, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that was well said. Yeah, kudos to you for saying that.
but
Well,
the sorry, I'll just like
sure.
I know some people get a little tripped up on that sometimes, and one of the things I will say, like, it's a bit of a joke, but like, you can produce professional quality stuff with some pretty basic equipment and
You
proper
can.
know-how. You can produce some very amateurish looking stuff with some very very expensive equipment. Trust me.
Right.
I know this. But the big thing is making sure that you pick the equipment that's going to, I'd say, get the job done for what you're trying to do. Um,
Exactly.
and
Well
I
said.
just
Well said.
like I don't think you're going to disagree with me, but like, I'd be a lot more confident with footage on one of these guys than, if I'm like, I just saved my entire movie onto these guys. Although now professional cameras have it where, like, they'll come up with two cards at once. Although
Right. Right.
the camera I bought
And
has two different
there's
sizes, and I don't
nothing
know why I did
worse,
that.
nothing worse than when you finish a film shoot and then you put that SD card in your pocket, and then you
Hmm.
drop it out of your pocket while you're loading your car. And then the
Yeah,
person that lives there calls you and goes, "I found this on the ground. Does it still work?"
which
you
which is
know,
why I use one of these. I'll flip it up the right way and probably pull
yeah, yeah, yeah,
focus
yeah.
but the right way. There we go. So this here's a little Pelican case. They come in a bunch of varieties. This one here is designed for SD cards, micro SD cards, and mini SD cards. If
Beautiful,
I hold it up the right
beautiful.
spot right there. Um, I highly recommend that people watching this, like, you can get one of these, and I'll have an affiliate link below because why not? But yeah, no.
It's happened. It's
Oh,
happened. Believe you me. And you,
I have done the whole "where's the card" and played. I was on one person's shoot and I gave them the card. Then they called me later, like, "Do you have a backup?" I'm like, "Why?" I'm like, "I misplaced the card." And we're out there in this forest in the parking lot looking to see if the card was there, and we got very, very lucky.
right, right.
So yeah,
The other thing we
get
should.
one of these and get it, like, probably smarter would be get one of these and, like, put, like, reflective tape or something on it, because
Right,
this is
right.
at the end of your
And
shoot, this is the most valuable thing on set.
it really, really is. And like when you get back home, that's when you really realize the importance of it. When you're there, it
Yeah.
doesn't, because you're so influxed with everything. The
Oh,
other
yeah.
thing that you've got to understand, I think that really was a turning point for me, was learning that a lot of the actors, they tend to always have a lot of questions, And I
Hmm.
always try and emphasize to them to try and ask me the questions before we get on set, because
Hmm.
when I get on set, as much as I love talking to people and I spend
Yeah.
a lot of time, where I don't mind educating them or helping them in some way, but when you get on set, you need that moment between you and the assistant director, so the two of you
Hmm.
can really concentrate on what you're asking the actor to do.
Yeah.
Because in theater, it's really out there where they're waving their arms in the air and there's these huge gestures and their eyes are
Yeah.
everywhere. And you get in the film and you got to do the Michael Caine approach, and you've got to
Yeah.
keep your eyes directly on the
You gotta keep looking here. You gotta keep looking
yes,
here. Like, you can't be like, "Oh, so what's going on over there?
yeah.
Oh,
The
I
second
see.
you
I see.
look
We got
away,
crullers."
exactly, your audience goes away. The other
Yeah.
thing that I found that you have to consider as well, once you do get to a point where you've done a few films,
Hmm.
and then you have to kind of, as Rush used to always say, there again, being a huge Rush fan years ago, you have to find inner bigness. Even though you finished your first film, go back and look at it and say, what could I have done better? And in your
Yeah.
next film, it's not about making a mistake, it's learning from your mistakes and learning not to do it again. And then say, well, last time we had a problem with audio. So this time I'm going to get a proper boom and we're going to get a proper 421 so we can actually get good audio. Because that was something that we went through for two films, where my wife kept saying to me, she kept saying, the audio on this is just no good. And I was going, well, I mean, you can hear what they're saying, but there's lots
Yeah.
of room tone issues and different things you got to do. And oftentimes, photographers live by this, triangle effect with the ISOs and the,
Yeah.
how much of a shutter speed and what's the perfect, what I've come to learn, especially now that Black Magic has introduced this new camera that I use now, that I can fix it when I get home, even if there's a mistake in it. So they've kind of
Right.
dummy proofed it, which is kind of neat. So Red hasn't done that yet, but they will.
Hmm.
But the idea, what you got to understand is that you got to understand what kind of film that you want. For example, if you're doing a car chase scene, well, you don't need a huge $100,000 camera. You can use a GoPro and it's fantastic footage and it's only a couple of $100.
Yeah.
Even the rent one is only $20, $30 for the weekend. So if that's what you're filming, you know, don't try and stuff all kinds of big cameras and, like try and learn and
Hmm.
try and do it the best way possible. The other thing is too is that if you buy a big heavy camera, well, when you've got to do movement shots and you start moving around, that becomes more bulky and heavy. And people like me, ex-cancer patients, we can't lift more than 20 pounds. So so
Yeah.
it's something that you've got to consider, that don't just buy it because it's the latest thing on the market. Buy it because it works for you. Then it'll be something that you use. And then, as you said, you don't need the best equipment. You just got to be able to know how to use it. And the other thing is too is that I forgot to say earlier, and I'm not sure if I did. You need a
No worries.
person like I have Judy that often turns to me and she goes, okay, that scene is no good and you got to dump it. And that is
Hmm.
so hard for me to do because everything I did is means so much to me and I get so
Yeah.
passionate. You need somebody to be able to turn you and go, okay, that just doesn't make any sense. Does
Yeah.
that fit the storyline? Rather
Yeah.
than having a movie that's an hour and 45 minutes long, an hour and 30 minutes will actually do a much better film.
Yeah. Well, I to parallel that, I remember when I was doing my film, I think I filmed about 73 minutes, and
Mhm.
I think only 50, 62 minutes actually made it into the film. Like, I cut almost I'd say 8% of the film out just because I was like the it was a bit too slow, or there were scenes I shot and it's like, this is great, but then I looked later and I said didn't really fit in the film. And I think that, as you said before, like, you really do need to learn how to edit, and
Yeah.
that really matters for filmmakers, indie filmmakers, because you know pacing, like if there's two things I know that I've seen in a lot of indie films that sort of irk me, and maybe you could like talk about some of the stuff that you've learned that irks you that you try to avoid, is when there's like really bad audio or when the pacing of the film is just way too slow.
Exactly. Brilliant point, if you don't mind me saying. Because let's say you're working like, what I found was when I was working on an action adventure film,
Hmm.
you've got to, your clips are like, some of them are less than a second. And you got to give the information that you need to come across. Where in the romantic comedy or a drama film,
Hmm.
you have a lot more time where you really want to get the expression across. You know,
Yeah.
you really want to be able to see the emotion in the actor's eyes. And a lot of the time with actors, they'll come to you and go, oh, I got to be able to act like this, and I got to be able to, and it's not about becoming something that you're not. In my opinion, what I came to find was that if you find a person and as they talk, they seem to be very passionate about how they say things, then allow them to allow that passion to come through. You know,
Yep.
don't get into a film set and try to tell them, okay, today this is exactly what you're going to do. Well, maybe that actor at home felt that, well, this scene, I got to be a comedian, I got to be the fall guy. you know Allow them to first to do what comes natural.
Yeah.
Then, if that doesn't work for you and that really was against the script, well, then correct them and say, well, the other important thing that I'd like to add that we didn't talk about yet is the 180-degree rule.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. So
Huge, please.
this is a huge deal. So you go ahead, and then I'll just try to explain it to photographers.
I too come from a background of photography, and where I had one time, tell you how old I am, where I had one time had a dark room, and we had the three chemicals, and
Yeah,
you would have
yeah,
to hang your photograph, and but you had the joy when from a blank piece of paper and that image would come up. Oh, you get this
yeah.
feeling like, oh my God, look what I created. And that is the beautiful thing in film. Sometimes you'll get, even though when I write a script and then, I'm passionate about something, that might not come through on paper. And other
Mhm,
times it comes through like a bolt of lightning, and actors take this and they do the scene. And for example, I've been editing a lot lately, and I just
mhm.
finished this one scene, and it was, I don't want to give anything away from my review, from my I have a brand new release coming up in January.
Yep.
I don't want to give anything away, but I did this one scene, and oh, it was just, it was a death scene, and even though there wasn't really a lot of blood and guts, it was so moving, because they're the two actors were actually had been friends for years and years. Murph Murphy and Nicholas Mallet, and the two of them had acted together for a number of years, went to high school together. So when it came to the scene, Murphy had actually gone through a personal thing herself through her family. So the timing was just, and when we did this scene, the emotion was just flying off the screen. And I thought to myself one day, I was doing it and tears were literally coming. And I thought to myself, oh no, like, what did I do here? This is really heavy. And then I thought to myself one day, while before band rehearsals, my
Mhm.
assistant director is actually the lead singer in my band. And she came over, and without telling her exactly what I was showing her, I put the headphones on her and I had her watch this one scene. And within about 20 seconds, the tears just started flowing. And I thought to myself, okay, I have something. So because in film, you really want to bring out emotion.
Mhm.
Don't just make the same boring thing. Don't have a guy walks into a room, turns to his girlfriend and says, okay, I'm breaking up. And he walks out the door and the scene is over. Have them do something. Have him come in and he's so nervous about talking to her. He's holding a vase and he drops it and it breaks everywhere. And as they're picking up the glass, he cuts his fingers and blood goes everywhere. And she starts freaking out. And in all that scene, he turns to her and goes, "Okay, that's it. I've had enough of you. I'm gone." He says, "I'm
Mhm.
breaking up with you." And he leaves. So you have to give them something.
Mhm.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You have to be able to and often at the beginning of the movie like that, that's usually the best place to do it. And you have that capability where you have the audience's attention, so they'll really grip what you're wanting, and you have to give them emotion. And
Yep.
that's something that right off the bat we kind of said to ourselves, we need to do this. And we got better at it, and I guess we are. Sorry, I do apologize. You know, I look at some of the success we've had because of the fact that some of my people are intelligent enough where we can sit down and we can get past the basic things and kind of say, look, what do we need to do here? You know, what do we need to get better? We need a better camera. We need better somebody on lighting. We need
Mhm.
you need a good audio person. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're intelligent and you take the time to work at something, then good things happen. So let me quickly talk about the 180-degree rule. The 180 rule. There's many different ways I've heard it referred to on set.
Yeah.
The biggest thing about it is that understanding that when you go into every situation, be it two people or three people or four people, you need to be able to divide the room up into half. If you look at a
Mhm.
full circle, it's 360 degrees, where half of that circle is 180 degrees, hence the 180-degree rule. So you got to kind of say in your own brain, who are the two people that are talking, or who are the two people involved in the scene? And you have to kind of work around that, so that you have to place your cameras around that. So you have to build, and what you have to do is that if you have two people in a scene, if you're looking from up above, you have to divide that room in half. And that half of the room is where you film from. Because if you film from the opposite end of the room, called the reverse angle, then you're
Mhm.
filming for a horror movie. Now, I
Okay.
should say, yeah, in horror movies, they use the reverse angle all the time because it
Okay.
makes people feel very uneasy. And it gives you that, like if you get to a scene and if you want to make people feel uneasy, you can flip back and forth to the reverse angle. But the one thing at CBC, they used to often ask us when we used to go out on mobiles, they used to
Mhm.
turn to us and go, okay, film all four angles, which means you had to first get obviously the wherever your placement is. If it's a
Mhm.
house or a building, you would need a wide angle shot of that. The next thing
Yeah.
you got to worry about is the area that you're filming in. You need to be able to bring the viewers from out here to down there to down there. So you
Mhm.
got to keep bringing them in towards what you want them to understand. So then, as you get into the two actors that are involved in the scene, that's where the 180 degree rule is basically is done. And most
Mhm.
conversations and 90% of your movie is all based on the 180-degree rule. So the first
Mhm.
thing you do is your outside shot. The next thing you got to do is you got to do your wide angle shot of whoever talking. If there's two people in the room, shoot two people. If there's four
Mhm.
people in the room, shoot four people. This way, the people watching at home, they can understand what's going on. Because all of a sudden somebody comes out from the background, they're going to go, who is this? Where did they come from? Unless
Mhm.
you're willing to shoot them coming through the door.
Yeah.
So less costs more. So if you want them part of that scene, have them in the room when you do the wide angle shot. So
Yeah.
then once you go to the wide angle shot, then you can start doing all your over the shoulders. And there, your 180-degree rule, there's one at this corner, there's one at that corner, and there's one in the
Mhm.
middle. The one in the middle is usually the wide angle. The two outsides are over the shoulders.
Yeah.
And then you
So
bring all that to editing. Or let's say if the guy turns and says, have you seen my brand new lighter? Well, make sure to get a close up of the brand new lighter.
yeah. So to put that into photography standpoint for everybody, basically, if you walk into a room, you're always shooting, like, various angles, you're always having it aimed at that half of the room.
Right.
So you wouldn't have, like, a shot where you're talking to one person, and then, like, if it's not, like, partial, like, if you can't see it in your wide shot, it shouldn't really be in your narrow shot. So the idea being is,
Exactly.
if I'm talking to you, you know, we're talking, and if we were to do a wide shot, it would come in from, like, the side angle because we're both talking to each other. It wouldn't come in
Exactly.
from necessarily a shot, like, from here talking to me, and then for you it'd be whoops over here. With the idea being that you would see a completely different background to what we're seeing right now, because the wide shot would show you sitting on the couch, me sitting in my chair. You wouldn't then shoot to see the rest, and part of the reason for that is because that's usually where all your lights and gear and everything is, and cast
Exactly. Exactly.
or
You have to
crew.
pick a
So
dead zone. There
yeah,
has to
yeah,
be a dead zone. And the other thing that you've got to consider while filming as well is that when somebody starts to say something important, you've got to kind of start coming in.
yeah,
They do that a lot in Hollywood, where,
hmm,
this is where, especially if it's something really important to the story, if it's something not that important to the story, don't worry about getting an absolute close up.
yeah,
I'm going to the grocery store. Like, that's not important. But if the character is saying, I just shot her, so this is where you have to kind of guesstimate the weight of a certain part of the scene. And
yeah,
remember, every scene has got to be connected in some way to the main story or the subplot.
yeah,
If
yeah.
it's not, get rid of it.
Yep, unless you're one of those crazy directors that make some very interesting films where they just have random stuff happening all the time.
Oh yeah. Oh, and you don't make too many film festivals doing that.
No, no, that's the kind of stuff you do once you're already famous.
Yes, yes, and you can afford. The other thing to consider as well about film festivals that we haven't really touched upon that I should really touch
Okay.
is what are film festivals used for.
Yeah.
There are certain film festivals that are just used for like meet and greet, and you can get to meet different people and you can connect. There are other film festivals that are there for promotion of your film. And
Okay.
then there are other film festivals that are strictly, should we say, political?
Sure.
Is that a right way to say it? Because
Yeah, they have a message that that the film festival wants to send out into the world and promote.
exactly. You can
Yeah.
have one. There's certain film festivals these days that you'll notice you get a lot of notifications. This is a woman's only film festival, or they
Yeah.
look for specifically directors that are women. And that's
Mhm.
understandable because, in a male generated world, I actually find it's opposite. I find there are more women that work in filming than men. I find it's opposite. In television, it seems to be an even split. So theater there again, it's almost an even split as well. I just find that film world is a little bit different that way. But um, the other thing that I found about film festivals is that when you go there or when you're invited to one, there's being accepted into a film festival and you're
Mhm.
an official selection, but then there's the procedure. So there again, we'll go back to that original point where if there's 800 films and they only
Mhm.
picked five of them, or they picked, let's say, five of those films, they might only show one at the film festival.
Okay.
They might only show two.
Yeah.
So the thing is, even though you made what's called an official selection, that means you're one of five, and that probably means they're going to use you at the theater. But you
Mhm.
don't get paid for that. Okay. Now, the other thing, too, is the airlines also use film festivals as well.
Yeah, you were mentioning that your film is being shown on Air Canada?
Yes,
Yeah.
currently, Hometown Mysteries 1, that one right there.
Yeah.
And we had a friend, a great morning. This is a Saturday morning. We get a phone call from our makeup lady, Wendy. Fantastic. She's been with us 5 films. You couldn't ask for a better makeup person. And Wendy calls us and says, My husband just came back. He just arrived in Denmark, Air Canada, and he watched our film on the plane. And like there was phone calls and emails and Facebook, and like everybody was so excited to hear the news. And it's, when your film, is used in a different city, or used in something like that, it's such an honor. And there again, I go back to, you know the beautiful thing about this, it's not just about me because I'm the writer and director. The
Hmm.
entire cast and crew get to celebrate. They
Yeah.
all earned those laurels. Do you understand? They
Yep.
get to put it in their CVs as much as I do. So the cameraman deserves it. The assistant director, the production assistant, they all deserve that. Does that make sense? And
Oh
to
yeah,
me, that's
100%.
that's the greatest pleasure in all this, is when, on a Saturday or Sunday morning, we get an email from some city. Like recently, about a week ago, we got a beautiful email from Kansas City telling us that we had won, the best narrative feature in the film festival. And
Nice.
the top prize, like we won in New York City. When they sent me the listing,
Hmm.
you have like the winners listing, and the first thing they list is the big one. And when you see your name, oh my God, the feeling is just incredible. Like the day when a beautiful place here in Ottawa is the Mayfair Theatre. There's
Yeah.
lots of them. Every city has one. And you can go to them and you can say to them, I made a film and I'd really like to show it. And you can invite a whole bunch of people and have a
Yeah.
bunch of people come. But when you start making a name for yourself and you actually drive up Bank Street and come down the other side, and you
Hmm.
see an entire street packed with people, and you all
Yeah.
of a sudden realize, oh my God, they're here to see my movie.
I hope it's good.
Oh, you're you've gone to a brand new plateau. The
Yeah.
other feeling that I should describe to people is when you're sitting in the audience and you're showing your movie and you hear everybody laugh. Oh, your heart just it grows like Grinch from the Christmas, where your
Hmm.
heart just grows. So, you learn from these little things, that yes, all those days that, waking up at 7 a.m. in the morning, and 10 hours on the film set, all those little things really become special to you.
Yeah.
you know so I just felt it was important thing to mention, because those moments in life, just so few and far between. And when you experience them, that's when you realize, okay, I'm going the right way here.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. So, I did want to ask you a
Sure.
tough question. Um, what would you recommend, or let me word this out properly. What pitfalls in getting your films into various festivals, etc., have you seen, and what would be a recommendation to like new filmmakers who are looking at doing, let's say, their first short or like their
Right.
first feature,
Right.
of something that they should watch out for when doing film festivals to make sure that they are getting, I'll say, the best bang for their buck, but more of the, getting their film in the right place for the right festivals, and how to sort of
Right.
choose a festival and not avoid some of the
Right.
various things that we hear happen sometimes,
Right.
without getting into too
First,
many
the
details.
first thing you've no, no, excellent, excellent question. The first thing you've got to understand is that edit tight and then edit tight again. Because a
Hmm.
lot of people leave so much empty space between when somebody turns and goes, "Hello, how are you?"
Yeah.
"I am fine. How are you?" "I am great." Like right off the bat, that's boring, boring
Yeah.
to watch. You know, Forget about the pleasantries. Just get
Hmm.
on with it. Show, don't tell.
Hmm.
That's really important. Don't show the guy walks into the room. Yeah, show him walking into the room, but he's got to have a reason for going into the room. You've always got to back stuff up. Have an undercurrent of something going on. This way there's more than just the obvious. Sometimes you got to make your audience reach for stuff. Don't just Don't just tell them, oh, there's going to be a knife hidden behind her back. Well, don't say it. Let the
Mhm.
person pull it out and let the
Yeah.
audience experience it. So that's something you got to learn in editing, where you got to cut to the chase,
Mhm.
and go back to your storyline. If this doesn't have anything to do with the story, and if it has nothing to do with the subplot, why did you do that? Well, I thought it was cool in this shot with the sunshine, and learn to use golden hour in the morning and at night if you can. Those are the
Yeah.
most beautifulest times to film, because the shots you get, just incredible. That means the hour in the morning or two when the sun first comes out, and the hour or two when the sun is just going down at night,
Yeah.
dawn and dusk. That's
Yeah.
usually the best. But I find sometimes people's schedules don't, so you got to do lots of blocking, stay out of the sun,
Yeah.
because then you get lots of these shadows, and that doesn't really look good, because you
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
to be, the other thing I'll say is that you got to be able to show the whites in your eyes. A lot of the times actors do like this, and they tend to talk people in a different direction, and you got
Yeah.
to teach them to turn their head and look towards the camera. You want to see the two eyes. The
Yep.
other thing that's important is learning how to put a light somewhere so it shines in your eyes. So that, I don't
Mhm.
know if you can see or not, but so you can see the little bit of white in my eyes, so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
so you can tell there's a light. Because now it's different when a person's dying, because that's where you tend to turn the light off, because then what
Yeah.
happens is the person's eyes change.
Yeah.
So that's important as well. Don't keep the lights too far away. You know, Actors are bothered with it at first, but give them a minute or two to get used to it.
Yeah.
The other important thing that I guess, a piece of advice that I'd like to give to people about film festivals directly, is that you have to be patient. I mean, it's as much as I really want one of my films to be in Cannes. I have to learn that it's a stepping stone. I can't just go from the first step to the 10th step to the 20th step. I have to learn how I went from step one to step two to step three. So cutting corners is fun, but how did you get to the Oscars? I don't know. I just did, like, that's no good.
Mhm.
Learn what you did and learn what works for you. And how do you know what works? Well, when you see your film in the audience, that's where it works, kind of deal. Where try a couple of times, where say to yourself, okay, this film is going to cost me the $500. I'm going to
Mhm.
have to rent the movie theater. And if I, let's say, get 10 people that are going to come to watch it, then I can at least have 10 people that I can judge this on.
Mhm.
If you don't know, or spend the time to watch videos and learn from the masters, learn from like Spielberg, learn from Scorsese, learn from all these people, watch their videos and listen to their opinions, listen to how they made things. Watch
Mhm.
lots of movies. Don't just watch murder mysteries if that's what you're into. Watch comedies. Watch sometimes things that you don't enjoy. Watch black and white movies. My wife's always trying to get me to watch black and white movies. She's like, you got to watch this, how Alfred Hitchcock used to do this. I mean, he did that murder scene in the bathroom without the
Mhm.
blade even touching her skin. And he had,
Mhm.
like, what was it, 40 different edits from different angles, you
Yeah.
know. So sometimes it's not necessarily showing the gratuity of something.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's learning to do it in the right way.
Mhm.
What kind of movie is this? What do you want to show? What do you not want to show? So
Yeah. I was gonna jump in there, and say, yeah, you're 100% right, and it's, one of the things I, was reading, recently was a review of the new movie, was it Friday Night at Freddy's? The
right,
newest horror movie, and somebody was talking about how, Nick Cage had done, I think it was Willy's Wonderland a couple of years ago, and it was sort of a very similar concept, and they were like, and the comment was is that both these movies are basically about like animatronics and stuff, murdering people and whatever else. But like, you sit there and say the Friday Nights at Freddy's. I'm sure it's a great horror movie. I'm not the biggest fan of horror movies, but you know. on the flip side of that was people were commenting was that, yeah, but the Nick Cage movie did it better. It was, they had more animatronics, the movement was a
Right,
bit more smoother. They
right.
had situations where it was like there was I don't wanna say comedy in it, but, like, they
Mhm.
they really kinda played with it a little bit more than apparently Friday Nights at Freddy's, and yet
Hmm.
both these movies are apparently quite good, but, I'm sure they're directed by different people, they have their own style, etcetera, but it's one of
Right,
those things where it's like, now I wanna, go and watch both movies back to back and sort of see, you know, how did somebody else do a similar movie, uh, differently. I'm also a big fan of puppets, so that's also
right,
I'm
right.
looking at. If I were to make a puppet horror movie, I should
Right.
probably watch these 2 movies and see how they both did it. Because obviously one person's opinion to another person's opinion, but it's one of those things where it's like,
Right.
"Oh, there's 2 movies that are, I'll say in the movie world, relatively close to each other,
Right.
that cover the same thing." Yeah, if you're thinking about making a movie about, animatronics murdering people, or you happen to for some reason get your hands on an old Chuck E. Cheese. um, it might be a good idea to look and see what other people have done. Like as you said, like watching those movies that you might not like, or maybe and see. I'm not necessarily watching them because I'm like, ooh, I like horror movies and see the animatronics murdering people, whatever. But it's this
Right.
concept of like, here's 2 movies that are very
Exactly.
similar that people are
Exactly.
comparing, and I'm like, why not go and see and then see what people liked about this movie, maybe didn't like about that movie, so that when I'm making another movie that may have absolutely nothing to do with animatronics murdering each other, I
Exactly.
can simply say,
Great point.
"Oh, I remember back in this scene, they did it this way and it worked, and somebody else did it similar scene, did it this way, like, and now I know this is what works, this is maybe not what works as well."
Exactly. And what works for you might not work for somebody else. No,
Yeah.
that's a very, very good point because oftentimes different directors look at things differently and they'll have
Mhm.
a different point of view. And no one's ever right and no one's ever wrong. It all depends at your personal point of view. And I think
Yeah.
that's what really separates and I know and I'll bring up a very good point. Um, 2 years ago, I was nominated in Toronto through Hollywood North for
Mhm.
Director of the Year,
Yep.
and
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. And at the time when I was nominated, I looked at the other two nominations, and one of them happened to be actually Tom Hanks's director. And I
Mhm.
first thing I had said to everybody was like, look, not on your life. Do I have a chance against this guy? I mean, he's working with Tom Hanks. He has about maybe $5 million to work on his movie. I have
Mhm.
maybe $5,000. I'm
Yeah.
like so small time. And yet the day when I got the phone call that morning, it was very strange. I got my phone rang that early that morning, and it was one of the gentlemen from the film festival themselves, and they were saying like, "We were really surprised you didn't come to Toronto to come and get your award," and like we were really surprised, and we actually ended up losing your award in the cab the night before because me and the guy from the film festival, we drank too much and we actually lost the award in the cab. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? And he was like, you won the director of the year. And I was like, what? I was like, what are you saying here? And he's like, look, we're sorry. We've been at it all night. It was a fantastic film festival, but you won. And I was like, I won. Oh my God. And then like, who do I tell? Who do I say? And all of a sudden Facebook becomes social
Yeah.
media becomes your best friend.
Yeah.
And awards are nice and they're a beautiful thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win money. And to answer your earlier
Mhm.
question while I think about it, some festivals do have maybe a small prize and stuff, but the
Yeah.
majority of them, what they actually help you with is getting your films into other cable networks, getting distribution,
Mhm.
possibly finding other people in the industry that, or getting it out there. You don't actually make money directly from the film festivals. Where you actually make your money is in the distribution side
Mhm.
of things, and it's better than music. In music world today, we make a penny a song. For every dollar, we
Yeah.
make 1 penny. In film world, we're kind of at around 45 cents to the dollar, which
Okay.
means the cinemas make about 60, 65 cents, and we make about 40 or 35 cents.
Mhm.
So it's not a lot, But when you picture, you
It's
show
it's
it
what
two
I
or
make for
three.
making YouTube videos. It's the 40-60 split.
There you go. So it's something where you're better off doing this because you love it and it's in your heart. Because the amount of work and the amount of money you're going to spend, even if you do make a few bucks, really it all ends up being, what do you want to leave behind? Your film will last, according to SOCAN rules, 50 years past your death, and
Mhm.
you can will it to, one of your family members. But just think of how proud one of your granddaughters or one of your grandsons is going to turn and go, hey, my granddad might be gone 10 years now, but look at what he did. Like, or my daughter can carry it. There again in
Mhm.
university, one of the stories they taught us, and that was about this guy, and I'm sure who did reggae music down from Jamaica, Bob Marley.
Mhm.
And while Bob was alive, they said that Bob made anywhere from 10 to 20,000 probably during his entire career.
Mhm.
But he was smart enough to put his stuff in his will. So one of his daughters took over. And since his death, she's apparently made over $200 billion.
Yeah.
You can't go into a Best Buy without seeing Bob Marley stuff everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go
Yeah.
into every big store, you've got Bob Marley stuff with Jamaican stuff on it.
Yeah.
She's a genius. Look at Kiss. Look at Gene
Yeah.
Simmons, the amount of money he's made on his investment.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah.
what you got to understand is that people want to make a return on your film.
Mhm.
Can we use your film and make money? You
Yeah.
know, it's nice to be able to go out and spend $100,000 and rent all these trailers and all this fancy gear. But if you don't know how to use that gear, and if you don't know what you need to do, well, you know, then your money is basically flying out the window.
Yeah.
So take it seriously, do your best you can, make mistakes, make lots of mistakes, but you have to be serious about what you're doing. If a film festival says to you it's going to cost you $85 to put your film in,
Mhm.
wait till there's a little bit of a discount. Then do it. Okay? Film festivals have the early dates, then they
Mhm.
have their closing date, then they have their late dates.
Yeah.
Sure, if you do it on the last day, you're going to pay top dollar,
Mhm.
right? That's if you really want to get in. But when you put a film into a film festival, the big thing you got to say to yourself is, I'm prepared to lose.
Mhm.
This way, if you win, you're happy. And if you lose, it's not really about winning or losing. It's really about enjoying what you're doing. You're bringing a message to people. You're spreading the word of what you believe. It's your past. It's your beliefs. And you don't have to be gross about it. You don't have to be rude about it. You've got to you've got to be somewhat intelligent about your opinion. You have to be
Mhm.
respectful of other races, other religions. You have to be respectful of men and women and different sexes and everything in today's world.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean you don't have a job to do. Do you understand?
I think
So,
so. Yeah.
you know, you want to bring in as many ethnicity, is that the right word, into
Yep.
this? But you also want to understand that every different culture has a different way of looking at certain things. So you have to embrace different idealisms, You have to believe that the world is a bigger place than just where we are, And sometimes you're going to have to try and look at things a little differently. And that's why learning to listen to people, learning to listen to people's opinions, but do that in the pre-production. Don't do it during production. During production isn't a time to say, this character should have been a 60-year-old man instead of 20-year-old man, you know?
Yeah. It's not a good idea to sit there and say, let's make major decisions while 20 people are standing around in a room.
But, but there again, as Danny once told me, there again, I don't like to use names. I shouldn't use names. As he once told me, you have to learn that sometimes in your film, when you start in April, it
Mhm.
might be August and you're still filming. and
Mhm.
one of your actors turns to you and says, "Oh, by the way, I just took a paying gig with," you know,
Yeah.
so you better always bring a pad and a paper with you all times.
I
And
I
be
can I
ready.
can I can tell you from my personal experience, even on a 4-day shoot, you having people saying, "Oh, by the way, I can only make it the 2 days," and you're like, "Well, I guess they're gotta do a little rewrite because 'cause they're not making it to the end of the movie."
And those sometimes spark some real imagination that just, this is unbelievable, and wow, we
Yep.
can now do this. So, but it also can be the enemy where it's like, oh my God, I got to give this line to this actor now. And then you have some actors that turn to you and go, hey, look, you should have warned me about this a long time ago. And it's like, oh no, please forgive me, So, but most people, hopefully, you've chosen them well in your
Mhm.
cast. And hopefully, the people are somewhat adult about everything. The other thing I should mention, I know audio, lighting,
Mhm.
all those things are so important. I know at first you're like, oh, it costs so much for all these lights, but remember the basics: 3-point lighting, have
Yep.
a light pointed at the back. Um,
Mhm.
as I realize my thing, see, I have one light there, I have another light
Yeah.
over here, I have, you know, you have
I
to
got
learn.
one light right now because I'm lazy.
Oh, yeah. Hey, no worries at all. I know a
I
lot of
gotta
people
I gotta
just
fix
use
the color on this one.
the most important one is usually the one that you point at a person's head to give them
Yeah.
depth, you know.
Yeah.
So there's those things you got to consider. I mean, there's lots of stuff you can learn on YouTube and online,
Mhm.
but um, to me, I guess I would call it old school, where I'm the believer where you got to kind of get out and you got to kind of meet
Mhm.
some of the people and get involved and see how they
Yeah.
do it and
Being on set
ask.
is the best way to learn.
Oh,
By
it
far, I
really
agree.
is.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really is, because there again, I was approached by Algonquin College about a good 6-7 years ago, and they were like, "Please take on students," and
Mhm.
I don't have a problem with that at all. I love inspiring them and showing them
Mhm.
that you can do this. Don't wait till you're our age.
Yeah.
Do it now while you're young.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it doesn't take $1 million anymore to edit a movie.
Nope.
You can do it on your own. I use DaVinci Resolve.
You can get DaVinci Resolve, the
Yes,
free version, and it's
yes,
surprising how much you can do on that. Like, there's the studio version, which is like $300,
yeah,
but the free version is, like,
fantastic.
amazing.
Yeah, I for
Yeah.
years I used Premiere Pro, and what I do is I start.
Yeah.
What I'll do is often I'll start on my studio in the basement where I use Cubase, and I do all
Mhm.
my audio tracks. And I always
Okay.
tell my students it's kind of like a Big Mac. You have all these different sources, and you got to
Mhm.
compress them all. And if you got too much, you can't bite into it. Picture your Big Mac being about a
Mhm.
foot high. Picture it being this big and you got to
Yeah.
bite into it. It just doesn't work. So once you compress it down, then you can bite into it. And it's the same thing. Remember, the secret is it's
Yeah.
not what you put into a mix, it's what you can learn to take something
Mhm.
out to allow something else to stand out. Don't allow
Yeah.
people,
I agree.
don't
I
allow people to tell you, oh, more me in the mix, please.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I did wanna give you a chance before the end sort of thing, is to talk about the films that you have that you're working
Sure.
on and coming up, sort of like a promo, like, talk about what it is that you want people to check out next. So when I do the ending, I can say,
Right.
"Go here." Like, if I don't know if, and people can go and, like, see a trailer or go see your
Right.
site, et cetera, to sort of say, "Hey, yeah, go see these people.
Yeah,
Don't
no,
watch
no,
me."
I appreciate that. Thank you. That's really kind of you to do.
Yeah, no
Thank you
worries.
so much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for giving me a chance to talk about my project. Currently, I have Hometown Mysteries 2, um, which is the one that
Okay.
precedes this one. And we're
Okay, so it's the prequel?
well, actually, this new one, that's Hometown Mysteries 1, the farmhouse murder. The
Yep.
second one is actually the case of the sleazy
Okay.
manager. I'm currently finishing the editing
Mhm.
on it, and we're going to be showing it at the Mayfair Theater starting. in January. It's actually not a show. It's a showing. What we always do before it goes to film festivals, we always have what they call a
Okay.
private showing for like
Showing. Yeah,
cast
private
members,
showing.
family, friends, and this way the
Yeah.
cast really gets to see it before the film goes off to the film festival, before the film festivals
Mhm.
kind of deal. And then after it's done, it's run at film festivals for about a year, year and a half. That's when we kind of look at either releasing it through some cable networks or through theaters or in some way, that we'll release it.
Yeah.
Currently, what I'm personally working on is we're just finishing it up and we're going to release Hometown Mysteries 2. We're currently filming
Okay.
Hometown Mysteries 3. This one is all about hot rods and fancy cars. And the first one was more about the
Nice.
first Hometown Mysteries was about horse world and people that jump horses and race horses. And there was a murder mystery that dealt
Yep.
around that. The second one was about a band from a hometown that's basically looking to
Mhm.
go out on the road, and their manager ends up, their manager ends up getting killed, and it's a murder mystery
Okay.
as well. And the third one is
Mhm.
deals with basically hot rod cars and another murder mystery. And we've been very sick.
I'm gonna guess the bassist and the Chevy did it.
Good one, good one. Yeah, there again, I know if I give out too much, I know I'll have to answer 100 emails tonight. You know.
Yo, I know, that's why I'm saying that's my guess. Go watch the movies, see them when they come out, and then you tell me if I'm
Exactly.
right or wrong in the
The
comments
one
below.
thing we do have coming up that we're going to be doing is that we're actually going to be posting right now. If you go to our website, songwind.ca, blackcherry.ca is my
Yep.
band one that will also interlinks. You'll see it on the website.
Yep.
What we do is we do have a lot of our trailers on there. Coming up, what we're going to be doing in the new year is we're actually going to be posting all of our um, all of our films on. We've been asked about Prime and Hulu and a few of these cable networks,
Mhm.
and we're basically going to be posting all of our movies. So in the new year, you'll be able to see all
Yep.
seven of my movies. So and
Very
yeah,
nice.
and that way we've been asked by Warner Brothers about holding back and not releasing and releasing a few of them at the same time, and and I
Mhm.
understand. And the other thing we should mention is that with the big strike going on down in the states, because we're an independent film, we're kind
Yeah.
of not part of that whole world right
Yeah.
now. So we're
Yeah, you're not in the
yeah,
union
even though
scene,
I
so
have been in the
yeah.
past a union worker with IATSE on different projects, but for what we're doing is kind
Mhm.
of recognized as being an independent film. There again, we have no big backers.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd love them, but
Yeah.
right now we're basically an independent. My wife and I accept the debt, and we do this because it's my love and my passion. It's
Mhm.
my therapy. It's what I enjoy doing. Is
Mhm.
that a good way to answer that?
That is an excellent way to answer that. And I would like to thank you very much for taking the time tonight to do this podcast and give us all this great information on film festivals, on feature films, and sort of your journey on how you've sort of gone from, starting out with this and saying, oh, let's try to do this. And then, saying, wow, you're actually getting like, some traction and getting some accolades for it to now being like, over 100 laurels, which is, it's no small
Yeah.
task to do. Definitely. And that's what kind of was like, oh, this guy actually knows his
It's a
stuff.
10-year
And
journey.
yeah, it takes time. It takes time. No question about that one. So if you want to know more about Rob and what he's doing, he's mentioned the website. There will be a link down below. I believe it's
Yeah,
songwind.ca.
perfect.
Yep, there we go. I got it. And if you want, that's probably going to be a video on top of my face about right now, which is going to link to his most recent trailer or intro video or whatever I
Yeah,
find on his channel. Be sure to go and check that out, give it a like, and reach out to Rob if you are in the Ottawa area and you are thinking you'd like to get involved or
yeah.
help him with his journey. Again, thank you very much for watching, and to everyone else. Have a good night. Well, I guess I I
Thank you
did
so
that
much,
backwards.
Graeme. It's been a real honor. We just love how many different people want to get involved in film, and even if they've got a location
Uh,
that we can use for filming, that is often so much help to us, and the nicest
oh
thing
yeah,
is sharing this with other people, and growing together, and such a pleasant
yeah.
journey to be on. But thank you so much for having me. It's really been an honor, and thank you again. It's been a pleasure talking to you this evening.
Thank you. And you mentioned location, which is the next podcast theme. So be sure to subscribe to the podcast. All right, I'm done. I've done my spiel. All right, have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.